Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very empowering show coming right up with special guest Ora Nadrich, and she's here today to share with us her new book, Live True, a mindfulness guide to authenticity. Now, Nora is the founder and president of the Institute for Transformational Thinking. She's a certified life coach and mindfulness teacher, and she specializes in transformational thinking, self-discovery, and mentoring new coaches as they develop their careers. So let's welcome to the show, Ora Nadrich.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you for having me.
Oh, what a pleasure it is to spend this time with you again. And my goodness, I love this book. I mean, as soon as I picked it up and started reading it, I could not put it down. And I know you're supposed to do the meditations, but I just kept reading.
Listen, that works for me too. You know, it's like I love to be swept up in a book. I love to just sort of go with the flow of how a book is directing me. And the good news about the meditations is that they're there after every chapter. And it's not intended for the reader to just stop and go, okay, let me do this meditation right now. It's that you have those meditations at the end of each chapter, which really encapsulates what the essence of that chapter was, so that you can then take that and integrate that into a meditation whenever you feel like it.
Well, and what's interesting as I'm going back through the book again, I'm picking up different things. And when you have books that are written as well as your book is, that is something that I find happens quite often. We'll read it once and we go back and reread it, and it's like, wow, that's really sticking out. Mm-hmm. You know, this is really something that is relative to what's going on in my life at this point, or a quote that's really standing out in my mind. I mean, there's so much there.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel that way. I mean, I feel that way even about a book that I've written, because you pour so much into your books, and that's why we as readers of other people's books, I can feel the same thing as I've done, is that they poured all this stuff that has inspired them and calls to them, and that you really want your reader to get that. And so that you go in there and you find yourself pulling from things that really resonate for you, or, you know, maybe at that moment in time it resonates even more because of what you're going through. So that's the beauty of what is in a book, is that I think it's very evergreen, and that you do find more and more as you pick it up again that quote, that pearl, that meditation, that idea is so rich in meaning, for us. And again, it's heightened by what we really resonate to in the moment.
Yeah. Well, and before we go too far down the road, because I mean, my curiosity just gets me on this, and I love learning what inspires people to write different books. So what inspired you to write this book?
Well, for Live True specifically, I lost my sister Esther right before I wrote this book. And for anybody that's read my first book, Says Who, she was a real integral part of why I wrote that book, in that she was my older sister and she suffered from mental illness. And, I was really devastated, both by her illness and then by her passing. And when she passed, this book really came to me. I almost feel like her spirit guided me in writing it. And it really highlights the preciousness of life. For anyone who's lost a loved one, it puts everything into perspective. And for me, because I had such a special relationship with her, when she passed, it just made me feel like this is it. This is it. These are the moments of our lives, and they matter. And we waste so much time, sometimes not even knowing that we are. And as a mindfulness teacher, it really, for me, was a beautiful coupling of being able to take a book, again, that was inspired by her passing, and focus on how to be present in our lives, how to value the moments of our lives, and how to bring the best of who we are to each and every moment that we're living. And that's really what the essence of Live True is how to be present, how to be really mindful of being present in the moment as who we really are, as our most authentic self. And coupling those two, I felt, was really important. And that was the inspiration for it, in essence.
Well, I'm so sorry about the loss of your sister, and I know when we lose somebody that has such an impact in our lives, just how devastating that can be. She must be, really proud of you for writing this book and kind of moving through, because we never really kind of move through loss, but getting to a point where you're kind of helping other people, in such a profound way.
Yeah, thank you. It really, really is a work of love, for me, in that, like I said, again, it's like an homage to her and the beauty of her spirit, and then wanting to share that with others, to say, look, you're amazing, you're special, you're unique, there's no one else like you. Live who you are, live true, which is the title, and it really pulls at my heart sometimes when I coach so many people, and I've, done many events where I've seen so many people struggling with accepting themselves, and so there's that component of, really coming to terms with who we are and loving ourselves, learning how to love yourself. And, with the teachings of mindfulness, which is being in the present moment with total awareness and with acceptance and non-judgment. And then what I always say is the cherry on top, with self-love. So that's a beautiful merging, I felt, of understanding, again, how to be present, and how to be present with self-love and compassion and acceptance of who we are. And that's a process. I know that. It takes practice. And this is really what I guide the reader in to do.
Well, and on that point, I think a lot of times when people think of authenticity, it seems like this elusive thing, like, how do I get there? And so how can people use mindfulness to bring them to their authentic self?
Well, that's a really good question. And, some of the mindfulness exercises that I take people through, or the meditations that I guide, is that I sometimes even have people, be present in the moment, even if it's closing their eyes, and asking them to recall a time in their life. It could be in the present, and it could be the past, of when they felt so connected to who they really are. And it's amazing what comes to the surface and into the foreground of their psyches, of, like, a lot of times childhood comes up. And I take people through a visualization, I take them through a meditation, and I say, can you remember laughing really heartily, or when you felt really seen, or when you felt really appreciated, or can you even give me an example of when you felt so good, so excited, so inspired of being you? And what comes up for people are very specific memories, moments, and they start to really feel inspired to share stories. And what that tells us is that sometimes we forget those moments. We forget the moments of when we felt really loved and accepted for who we are. And we have to sometimes recall those times to reconnect us to when we were being so authentic to our true nature, which can also be called Buddha nature. And that isn't a religious concept. It's just the essence of, Buddha saying, be true to who you are, that we all come into the world as these spirits. We come into the world as, Marianne and as Ora, and we are unique, special beings. And we lose sight of that. Life bombards us, and it bogs us down, and we have the inner critic, which I talk about a lot in Says Who, and we tell ourselves so many things about who we're not, and we don't allow more of supporting who we really are, and that is the inner dialogue of self-love and acceptance. So, these are reminders, And this, again, is a practice.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when you talk about self-acceptance, that is a thing that most people have a really tough time with. There are a few people that, hey, they've got it mastered, not a problem, but most people have a story wrapped up about that.
They do. They have the story and they have the narrative. And I also have said in Says Who, the yeah buts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm not this. And yeah, but I'm not going to get that job. Or yeah, but I am really bad at relationships. And, where mindfulness comes into play with both books is to have a mindful awareness of the things that we tell ourselves, and that how we're so quick to believe telling ourselves things about ourselves that are very undermining, very negative. And again, we all have the inner critic. And so, where Says Who really stopped and Live True continues is, with Says Who, I really bring the reader into understanding how to be mindfully aware of the thoughts that we tell ourselves and acknowledge those negative thoughts and then begin the process of changing them, the transformation tools. And that's what Says Who is all about. I then bring the reader into Live True with the mindful awareness of the authentic self, that not that everybody's going to read Live True having read Says Who, but that we really do have to be aware of that we are, works in progress, and that what the beauty of mindfulness allows for is that it brings us into present moment awareness so that we can be mindful of when we're just starting to chip away at the authentic self. And the more you practice mindfulness, it really not only helps you become more aware of what you tell yourself, but it also brings you back into the moment of self-love. And again, this is a practice. It's a way to create, the mental strength that we need to support our well-being.
And it's interesting. Once you start down that path, it becomes a path that we're kind of, it's a lifelong journey, it seems in many ways, but it becomes easier.
It is a lifelong journey, and I love that you said that, because this is the journey. This is the life journey. It is a constant, perpetual evolution, and that in itself is beautiful. We're so hard on ourselves. If you're committing to the path of awareness and you're committing to the path of self-realization or self-actualization, and you're like, hey, you know what? I really am. I want to evolve. I want to grow. I want to, heighten my awareness and raise my consciousness. Then you know that this is a day in and day out commitment, and it's a practice, whatever your practice is, whether you're a meditator or you're not, it doesn't really matter. But really where the commitment lies is it's committing to yourself. It's committing to changing what I call those old habits of thinking and learning new healthy habits of thinking. With all the neuroscience, the discoveries today, which I love, and that these positive, healthy, wholesome, new habits of thinking are changing brain chemistry. We don't default to old habits of thinking, but instead we're creating new neural pathways. And so you don't default to old ways of thinking. You don't default to old negative patterns of thinking. You start to learn that these new habits of thinking are so good that you feel inspired to continue on this, evolution of growth and learning of how to be the authentic self.
Yeah, moving into that place. And, and it's, interesting you mentioned this, or, just a little bit ago about, how we're just kind of bombarded, and people, in my opinion, in many ways are so disconnected. So when we talk about authenticity, it could really seem like a unicorn. It's like, oh, I'm not sure if that even exists, but it really does.
It's true. The beauty of a lot of this for me is that so much of what was considered New Age concepts or woo-woo or airy-fairy, this has becoming more into the mainstream. And, when you have mindfulness on the cover of Newsweek and Time Magazine, you know that it's hitting a chord and in people, and they're resonating to it. I don't want people to feel that they can't be a part of this. I think that when you have ideas or concepts like mindfulness or meditation, there are many people that go, well, I don't even know if I know what that is, or I don't even know if I know how to do that. And this is something that everybody can do, and this is something that everybody can be a part of, and mindfulness is a quality that is inherent in all of us, which means we all have the ability to do it. We just need to tap into these riches, these attributes that we have. And for somebody who's really new to this, and they go, okay, but what do I do? Tell me what to do. How do I do that? I have something in Says Who, which I brought into the workshop that I just did at 1440 Multiversity, and it's my release and replace technique that is such a simple technique of that when you think a negative thought, you can replace it with its positive counterpart. So it's as simple as saying a negative thought pops up into your head, and I tell the people that I work with, now I want you to replace that with its positive counterpart. And tell me how it feels. How does it feel in your body to say a negative thought to yourself and then switch it out with a positive? So instead of saying, I'm unlovable, which we know isn't going to feel very good, to saying, I am lovable. And say that a couple of times over and over again, and you're going to feel a difference in your body. Do you know? So these are practical tools. These are little steps that we take daily where we start to actually feel the difference. So you take something like authentic, which again can seem, the whole, unicorn concept of, what does that even mean? And, what does my authenticity even look like? All I'm really asking people to do is to connect to the parts in themselves that feel real, that feel true to who you are.
That is so important, and it's something that is obtainable, and that's, I think, a very empowering thing for a lot of people, and it's something that can be done, you can do a little bit every day. When I was reading Live True, what I liked about it is that at the end of every chapter, you have this, it walks you through the meditation, and we were just talking earlier, and the meditations are actually available for people to download as well, right?
They are. I recorded each meditation. There's 30 of them, and I recorded them. They're really lovely. They're to music. They're very soothing. And for anybody who wants an audio version of that, I think it's just a real plus. And they're up on the music outlets like iTunes and TuneCore, and I believe Spotify and Pandora. I have a series of Ora meditations prior, and these are the Live True meditations. So you can really download any of them, and like I said, there's 30 of them, and they're really lovely. So you don't have to be a meditator. You don't have to be a meditator for any of this. And for someone who's new to meditation, I think it's a really lovely way to start, especially some of the earlier meditations in the book. They're very user-friendly, and I think the guidance of them is really straightforward. And, again, it can be something that anybody can jump into, whether you're a new meditator or you're a seasoned meditator.
Well, and at the very least, people can become present within their day, even as a starting point.
Yes, exactly. And I think what's lovely about the audio ones is that you can just sit somewhere quietly and listen to it. Like I said, they're very calming, very soothing, because the music is just so lovely. And even if you listen to one a day, or listen to the same one, or listen to whichever one resonates for you, there's quite a combination of meditations there.
Yeah, different ones to choose from. Well, in your book, you have the Magic Moment Meditation, and I'd love to talk about why that's so important.
The magic moment, the reason why I even called it that, and what came up for me with that, is that, as much as every moment doesn't feel magical, obviously, we have some very positive moments that happen in our lives. And obviously we have some difficult and painful moments. But I really wanted to drive the point home that we think that magic exists outside of ourselves. You know, we wait for something magical to happen. We wait for something that's just going to like lift us up and make us feel so good and so high and so exalted. And then when we don't have those moments, we feel, you know, very underwhelmed by life. You know, we feel sometimes like, oh, you know, you hear people say this. You know, it's amazing to me that, you know, excuse me, I've I think said it myself, like, you know, if you've ever been to an event or there's an auction or someone's won something, how many people say, oh my God, I've never won anything. You know, like that never happens to me, you know, or I never have those special moments, you know, and the magic moment is that there's so many beautiful moments that can feel magical that we don't even see around us. For me, I watch a sunset. And, you know, I'm just that person. I can watch sunset after sunset or sunrise, and it feels so magical to me. Do you know? I'm like, oh, look at this moment. It's amazing. And the beauty of mindfulness is it teaches us how to be appreciative of the moments in our lives and not to take them for granted and be more in gratitude so that when those special moments happen, they do feel magical for us. Do you know? And that when you start to look at life in that way, you start to see things that feel more magical to you. And that's why I had something like this magic moment meditation. It's almost like you're invoking, you're acknowledging this moment as being magical. And, you know, to define the word magical more specifically so it doesn't sound like it's, you know, woo-woo or what, you know, like magic is in a magic show. Magical for me is more along the lines that it's special and it feels, you know, extraordinary, and it feels like something that makes you feel like, wow, this moment is so special to me that it's making me feel like giddy, or, you know, that I'm feeling goosebumps. Do you know? We have to acknowledge those moments as special and or magical, and we'll start to be aware of more of them. Do you know? I put moments much more in the magical category than I ever have before because I practice mindfulness. Do you know? I walk into a room and there's rainbows just coming through my window. That feels magical to me.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one.
Do you know what I mean? We mustn't just ignore those moments. They are magical.
Yeah, get a beautiful sunrise or sunset, or, I mean, there's so much to be appreciative of, you know?
There really is, do you know? And that is, again, the beauty of practicing mindfulness, where you start to see that, and then you start to notice synchronicities. And that's where magic really can take on a whole new level for you, because when you become much more present, your senses are more heightened, and you start to see more, and you start to feel more. And what you start to notice is things that sort of come into your life that feel very synchronistic, do you know? And that is the beauty, is that things start to take on a whole new meaning for us. And many people have described that when they start to practice this present moment awareness more, that they start to notice things that happen that feel so interesting and synchronistic. Do you know? We're expanding our awareness. We're heightening our awareness. And so therefore, more special moments start to appear in our lives.
Well, and that's where the magic happens, you know, where we're able to really be present. Because there's something about the past always dragging us backwards, and most people, when they think of the future, it's with worry and doubt. It's not really putting the right energy forward. So
absolutely, Marianne. Yeah. And I do talk about that in Live True. I talk about the 3 different time frames that we spent most of our time in, the 2 time frames that don't even exist. The past, which is come and gone, and the future, which isn't here yet. And we spend sometimes the least amount of time in the present, which is the most real moment of our lives, because we're the most alive in the present moment. And I coined those 3 sort of names, if you will, of, are you a past dweller, are you a present experiencer, or are you a future chaser? And I've had so many people go, I love that. And you know what they say? I admit to myself that I tend to be more of a past dweller than I am a present experiencer.
Yeah.
And the future is what causes us the most worry, concern, and anxiety, because we're so worried about what might or could happen.
Mhm. And it's interesting, and your book really does point it out really well, these three different categories, so people can recognize where they're at and make those adjustments.
Absolutely, and I've been thrilled by how receptive people have been to it and the way in which they're admitting it to themselves. This isn't a criticism. This people really saying, "Wow, I am somebody who my mind drifts a lot to the past." Or I have people will say that don't go to the past. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm constantly anxious about the future. I'm a worrier. I'm always worried about what might happen, what could happen, and I'm catching myself more." And that's really the beauty, again, of mindfulness, or even these categories that I've broken it up into, is that it starts to make you more aware of when you're about to slip into that type of thinking. Are you worrying more about the future, or are you lamenting more about the past? And can you help bring yourself more into the present and be accepting of the present moment and just allow for it to be, which is, again, allowing for the experience.
Mhm. What is the number one reason you think people get stuck when it comes to mindfulness?
When it comes to practicing it or being
Yeah.
present, do you mean?
Just practicing it.
I think that, with these tools and these skill sets that I'm offering up in my books, I think that people don't really know what to do. Like, we have habits. We have habits of thinking and habits of behavior. And, this is new. Again, it's a new concept to go, well, tell me what to do. How do I stay more present? Which I really guide the reader in both books, as I said. And I think for them, anything that's new, that they have to practice it. And so it's something that you have to bring yourself to the awareness of knowing when you're stepping out of the moment. And that's what I hear people say to me a lot. They will express to me, again, I have a hard time staying present. And I'll say to them, well, what is it about the present that you have a hard time being in? And they'll invariably will say, I tend to rehash or relive a lot of moments from my past. And, in your book, it's helped me understand that I can't change that. And then, or people will say, I tend to worry about the future. So what you don't want to do is just to have an intellectual concept of these ideas. You want to practice mindfulness. So a great way to do that, but to be specific, is that if you find your mind wandering into the past or into the future, catch it. And that's really the note to self that I bring up in the back of every chapter, is like, there I go again. I'm starting to worry about tomorrow or later or next week. Okay, let me bring my focus and awareness back to this moment. And by the way, this practicing of mindfulness, which is really the way in which meditation is practiced, that if you're not a meditator, or if you are, you know that in meditation what we're trying to do is quiet the mind and to stop the busyness in the mind, or what's called the monkey mind. And what helps us is when our mind starts to wander or become active with thinking, we simply bring our focus and awareness back to the breath. And what that does, it anchors us. It anchors us into the moment, and we then begin to just let those thoughts go. And that becomes a practice, so that the more you meditate, you know how to bring your awareness back to your breath. If you're not a meditator, the similar example of that would be like if your mind starts to worry about the future, it starts to lament about the past, you bring your focus and awareness into the present. What am I doing right now? Am I listening to this person? Am I in this interview with Marianne? Mm-hmm. Am I paying attention to what she's saying? Am I not thinking about anything other than this interview, which I'm really enjoying? Do you know, this is how we gently guide ourselves back to the moment of now.
Yeah, is to really have that moment where we're just fully present, and there can't be a better gift than that.
And also, Marianne, I want to add to that, and I do talk about it in the meditations, is to be aware that this moment is enough. Mm-hmm. You know, we have a problem with feeling that things aren't enough. It's like enough-itis or something. You know, it's like if we bring ourselves back into the moment, like, hey, I'm really enjoying this moment. I'm good. This moment is enough for me. I'm not wanting for something more. And that's an appreciation of the moment that you're in.
Yeah. Well, Ora, my goodness, I mean, we can talk for days on just, meditation and mindfulness and authenticity. I mean, you're such a fountain of information when it comes to, of course, your book, Live True. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
I would love that, and I really extend an invitation out. I love people to come into the conversation with me and the experiences, and, my website is oranadrich.com. There's information on there as how to email me. I love hearing from people. We're on this journey together, and that excites me. All my social media handles are my name, Ora Nadrich. I really welcome hearing from you, sharing your experiences with me. Check in with what I'm doing. I do workshops and public speaking. I'd love for people to be a part of it. Again, I was just at Multiversity, 1440 Multiversity in Scotts Valley in Northern California. I had people come there from all over. And it feels so great when we all come together as like this collective, and I love meeting people. I love sharing this consciousness-raising journey with you. Do you know?
Oh,
and
I love that too. And my goodness, and you've got so many great resources on your website.
Thank you. So please reach out to me. I welcome it.
Oh, well, Ora, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me again. I loved it.
Well, thank you, Ora. It's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you and, of course, to talk about your new book, Live True, A Mindfulness Guide to Authenticity. Again, if you'd like to connect with Ora, you can at her website, oranadrich.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.